By the time I was born, there was no more calamity. There was only the silence of a world brought low by war. Just the held breath of survivors, waiting to see if destruction would return. The absence of gods who, in compromise, left to save what they could. The earth reeked of death, the sky scorched with fire. Even the very ley lines of Exandria shook and quivered, as fragile as glass, terrified in their own way. Exandria was a smoking ruin. Though it yet lived, it would be ages before it thrived once more. Before he left beyond the gates his siblings made for themselves, my Creator came to the world he loved so much one last time. And there, he planted me. I can tell you only what I recall, and what I recall is very little. But there will always be something about the thought of my progenitor that sends me back to the moment of my own creation. Why did he make me? And what did he wish for me? In the deep roots of myself, where all my feelings and thoughts live, if I try very hard, I can conjure the image of him at my planting. You, whose mortal eyes are not made for it, cannot stare directly into the sun. But I, whose body was made for my Creator's light, can vaguely recall the details of him. There was weariness in him, though you'd not know it by looking. There was a meagerness to his core, which pulsed with frenzied brightness. But to me, it was clear he ached. And though no mortal could discern them, there were wounds within his molten visage that would not heal for generations, patches of darkness swallowed and held away from the world he loved. My Creator, my parent, the Dawn Father. Oh, my father, shattered from a long, heartbreaking war. Within his corona, a crown that is the sun itself, there is light, fire, destruction, creation, judgment, severity, but gentleness too. And yes, kindness. As I was lowered into the scorched, blackened earth, high in the mountains, that was what I remembered most. Even the supreme sun may handle the smallest thing with tender care. Hands, each a burning bonfire, buried me deep into the soil. His divine warmth wrapped around me like a swaddling blanket. How long he stood thereafter, I could not say. Not that I could even think yet, let alone speak. That would come later. But I can imagine it, his loneliness, his unfiltered rage, a shadow to my father's son. My father stood there for a long time and, in doing so, showed me what my tasks were to be, to watch, to witness, to stand for as long as I could, to shine regardless of the dark, and, in shining, to see and know all around me. Of course, he left at some point. I couldn't tell you when or why. I imagine he heard, from somewhere beyond the stars, the words of his siblings, calling him home before the closing of the divine gates, wrought of pure will. Or perhaps it was the plea of a faithful, beseeching his light and aid. I know it was most likely some other horror that needed his might, but I'll always hope for him to find joy when he expects conflict. Either way, he left, and before he did, he laid a massive, hot palm across my planting site. I can hear his sigh even now, as though sound were steel, carved into my very heart. To hear a god exhausted. Someday, my limbs would be large enough to hold him, for even the sun needs comfort and rest. But then I was still but a seed and could do nothing. I can see him standing now, lighting every angle of the alabaster sierras like the dawn. And like every dawn, he leaves. The light fades, and in my seed I slumber, dreaming of sweet, sweet sun.